So Bitcoin has seen a pretty good recovery over the last couple days, and I want to talk about that. So here we go. I think, a lot of people are still very bullish in this season, and they think that Bitcoin is going to recover. It's going to keep going up. Obviously, we just saw a humongous drop over the last couple months, all-time high being in November. There's now February, and people are expecting us to see a V-shaped recovery. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm going to show you exactly why I don't think that's going to happen based off of past previous bull runs. Obviously, you look at people and there's a lot of speculation in the air. I don't know for sure what's going to happen either. And I don't want you to think that this is me telling you anything. This is for entertainment purposes only. However, I do want to just show you what I believe is going to happen based off of previous trend cycles. Did I really just say trend cycles? Oh my God. I'm not on steroids. Oh, fuck. Alright. I got a trend on my mind, apparently. Alright. So, obviously, a lot of people think that Bitcoin is gonna just keep going up from here, and there's reason to believe that that is not the case, and I'm gonna show you exactly why. If we look at previous cycles and previous bull runs, we can see exactly what has happened. This year is very, very similar to what has happened in the past, back in 2017, back in 2013. Now, currently, we have seen a all-time high of close to 70K. We closed at 67.5, it looks like, and that was back in November. Now in February, we are sitting at about 41.6, and we did see a low of 32 at one point, but it closed above that. It closed at around 35, it looks like. So if we look at the previous bull cycles, and I'm going to go all the way back and just open this up to previous cycles back in 2017 and 2013, right? So this was the last huge spike, which was December of 2017. Okay. Now, this happened right after the last halvening event, Bitcoin halvening every 3.5 years. So this cycle is pretty much exactly where we are right here. Okay. This was when the halvening happened, and then we saw some supply shock, and then this huge, huge parabolic run all the way up to 60. It got up to 69 at one point, but it didn't close at that. So that was our all-time high so far. And I think looking at these trends that we can see that this may be the all-time high for this cycle. We might not see this again until the next bull cycle, which would happen at the next halvening event 2 years from now. Okay. So if we line this up, right, we look at December. December, we saw all-time highs back in 2017. Now let's go back even further and look at 2013. Okay. So this goes all the way back to 2013. And we're going to look right here. Obviously, it's a lot smaller because there wasn't nearly as much volume. There wasn't nearly as many people involved in Bitcoin back in 2013. Okay, but you can see almost the exact same thing happened back then. And how can okay, I can't get that close. But look at this. This is in October of 2013, and then you look at November, and then look at December. November, December were the all-time highs again, okay? 12.3 being 11.51. And then we saw a little drop, a little sell-off, and then we saw a little bit of a recovery in February, January, February. It looks like January of 2013. Maybe actually February too. And then it kind of sold off, and then it traded sideways all the way in the 200s, all the way up, and barely started recovering in 2016. And then look what happened in 2017, right after the Bitcoin halving. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Saw this humongous, humongous parabolic rally into December where we saw an all-time high of 19,497. Okay. And then you look at January, which is when this sell-off happened. We saw this huge drop downwards all the way until early February in 2018. And then the low of 7,069.55. And then we saw another recovery, which would constitute as a Deadcat Bounce because it did not go back up. And then you can see this. This is what they call a Deadcat Bounce right here. So this is the all-time high, and then it just goes almost about, maybe close to like halfway, and then it drops down again. It goes about halfway of that, drops down again, and then so on and so forth. And this is what happens during a bear market. Okay, we just see these downward trends, and it's like a descending triangle, right? Now, this happened in 2017 going into 2018. We didn't see recovery again until coming up until about 2020. And even in 2020, sorry, 2019. And even in 2019, we did not see this all-time high again. We only saw about 12K. Okay, so the all-time high was at 20K in 2017, and then at 12K in 2019. And then we saw some more descending triangles action all the way up. And this is where the Black Swan event happened in, COVID, beginning of the pandemic. And then all the way up until 2020. And then look what happens in 2020, 2021. Boom. Huge, huge, huge parabolic spikes. Now, do I think this is going to drop down to these levels again? No, I don't think so. I think we have so much institutional money and we have so many retail traders that now believe in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that this is probably going to stay pretty, pretty high up here. I would assume we stay in the 30s. Maybe we dip down to the 20s even if this is a bear market. And this is where, if these are the parabolic peaks right here, these are the peaks of the market, would be right here. We would be looking at right about here. And if you look at the dates, even they match up pretty closely. So, like, if this is in December, right? These are the all-time highs in December. These are all-time highs in November again. So a little bit earlier in the year, but still not that much earlier. And then we see these huge sell-offs in January, February, and then a low of 7K in February. Well, we saw an all-time low happening in January, end of January, almost beginning of February. And now in February, I'm expecting us to see some sort of dead cat bounce where we see some sort of retracement back up to about, you know, if this is like I'm not going to do the Fibonacci because I don't believe in that all the way. I think, there's some psychological evidence that it works, but I think it's mostly based off of volume and what the market decides. So I'm assuming that if this is, an all-time high of 20 and we saw a retracement all the way up to about close to 11 and a half, 12, which is about 60% of the all-time high. Okay. Right. So it's close to about 60% of the all-time high. Now, if we're looking at this again, all-time high was close to 70K this last bull cycle. So 60% of 70K, we're looking at about 48, maybe. So we may see a retracement up to about the 48 level. The thing that I would be worried about right now is trying to buy back in, expecting another parabolic run up higher than this because in all honesty, I don't think it's going to happen, especially with the Fed coming in saying they're going to start raising rates. They're going to start tapering bonds. People are going to be a little bit more skeptical of investments right now. So I don't think we're going to see this again, even though people are more prone to investing in cryptocurrencies now as opposed to back in 2017. I don't think that with the way the economy is going, that we're going to see another humongous run like this. I think we got to be careful. I think what's going to happen is if we follow the same trend lines, right? This is February going into March, and then March we see a drop. In the middle of March we see a drop, all the way down to even lower low than the previous one, right? So this was 7K. This was almost 6.5. 6,800. And then we see another halfway retracement, and then we see another low, and then we see another halfway retracement, and then we see another low, all the way until December of 2018 when we kind of bottomed out. Okay. So if we're repeating cycles, right, and we're looking at what the last cycles have done, and they've done them for the last two cycles now, okay, since 2013, 2017, now we're in 2021. What I can expect, if I'm correct, and I think I am, what I expect is to see a decent retracement, maybe up to about $48,000 come in February, March, and then another sell-off happening, maybe sit there for a week or two, and then another sell-off happening towards the end of the month, maybe middle of the month, because we are a little bit ahead of schedule, it looks like, as opposed to previous cycles, right? So I would say another sell-off middle of the month down to a lower low, maybe close to where this low was of 30K, maybe a little bit lower where I said we could probably hit that, maybe even 20s, 28,000 could be a Fibonacci. I know that's one of the Fibonaccis that people are talking about is 28K. So that could be where we see this go next after this little spike. Okay. And then I see another small retracement, blah, 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 and repeated, repeated, repeated. Okay. So what I'm planning on doing about this is because I'm still holding is I'm probably going to sell towards the end of February, beginning of March, and then I might even try to buy back in towards the end of March, beginning of April, and try to ride the next wave up a little bit. I'm not usually a swing trader, but because these are such huge swinging momentums and you can kind of see where these are going as long as you like watch the charts, you can see that it went up and then it went down and then went up and then went down and then went up and then went down. So you can ride that wave if you know what's happening, right? Do we know what's happening for sure? No, but it's definitely plausible, and I would say that based off of previous cycles that were very close to that same thing. So what I plan on doing is selling towards the end of February, beginning in March, and then trying to ride the next wave up in April. Okay. Now, if you really want to time this out and you don't want to mess around with these because then you're too skeptical about the market, I totally understand that. What I would do in that scenario and what I plan on doing is going all in December. Going all in December and January of 2022. So the end of this year. So like if we see an all-time low, if we look at the last cycle, the all-time low was in December of 2018, January of 2019. So if we see an all-time low in December of 2022, right? That is my signal to buy. That is my signal to buy everything I could possibly purchase. And that's what I plan on doing. I'm planning on taking everything out and then reinvesting in December because what's going to happen if, the next happening event would be in 2023 and then we're going to see these supply shocks again right here and then we're going to see those parabolic rallies in 2024. Okay? If cycles repeat themselves, and more often than not they do, I think that's probably what's going to happen, and I'm going to bet my entire portfolio on that. So I'm not telling you guys to do the same thing. I'm just telling you what I'm doing, and based off of what I see in pattern recognition and previous bull cycles, previous bear cycles, I think that is very, very plausible. And if you look at ETH, I'm going to go to ETH real quick and just kind of show you the same thing. It was the exact same thing, right? 2017, December 18, December and January of 2018, huge, huge parabolic rises. We saw a sell-off right here, saw a little bit of a correction in February, and ETH doesn't follow Bitcoin exactly because it does have an ecosystem on it. And for all I know, ETH could keep going up. We could just see this one just keep going up because people have built things on Ethereum where Bitcoin is just a store of value at this point. And because everything follows Bitcoin, you can kind of just watch these trends unfold in front of you. So like, even though it's not exactly the same, the general pattern is the same, right? Like this was in 2017, 2018 beginning, and then we saw these like small rallies, and then we saw a decrease all the way until the bottom in 2020, in December of 2020, December, January 2020, and then we saw these huge rises back up. Okay. So that's what I plan on doing, guys, with this next little leg in the market. I'm trying to get out. If I see it go past 48 and it starts going to the 50s, that's a different story. If that happens, then maybe we're looking at the next leg of a bull cycle. But if we don't see that, I plan on selling everything going into March and possibly trying to buy back in the end of March and the beginning of April. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is the reason why I believe these things is because if you look at previous economic cycles, which we all know that Bitcoin is closely related to the stock market, they almost have a one-to-one correlation at this point. The Fed in 2018 had 4 interest rate hikes, just as we expect a lot of interest rate hikes to happen in 2022. Okay. So in 2018, right? 2017, we were having a great year, right? We saw these huge, huge rallies. Everybody was making money. Everybody was making money. 2018 was the first year in I think it was like a decade where we saw a loss on the S&P 500 over the year. I think it was a 6% loss over the year for 2018. The Fed raised interest rates 4 times throughout that year, okay, to fight inflation. That same thing is happening this year, guys. The Fed has already announced they're going to be raising interest rates, starting in March, which is also a reason why I think if we look at the same lineup in 2018 when they started raising interest rates, that's the same thing that's going to happen this year, right? We're seeing this mini rally going into February. As soon as the Fed decides to hike up those interest rates again, boom, we're going to see a drop. Okay. And then people are going to get over it. We're going to see another mini rally. Interest rates are going to go in. Boom, we see another drop. And then that's kind of exactly what happened in 2018. So I think very similar, we're going to see that same thing happen throughout 2022. We may even see a loss in the S&P 500 throughout the year if history repeats itself, which more often than not it does. So that's why I believe that these cycles are going to repeat and we're going to see that same thing happen here. You can make a lot of money in the stock market, you can make a lot of money in cryptocurrency if you can recognize patterns and you can and play those patterns to your favor. This is how I'm playing this going forward for the year. And, I'm holding some of my bags that I don't want to let up because, these altcoins could pop off at any moment. It doesn't have to follow the rest of the market. But for the general market with Bitcoin in the top 100 cryptocurrencies, I'm gonna stick to this pattern recognition that I've already kind of laid out for you. So that's what I kind of plan on doing. Not saying that it's for sure gonna happen because with mass adoption comes change. With change, we could see Bitcoin just start taking over as the main, who knows? Maybe all institutional money starts flowing into cryptocurrencies as opposed to the stock market. Who knows what happens? But that's what I'm going off of based off of previous cycles. And, if you guys want to learn more, please make sure to subscribe and like. I'll post some more videos in the future with some updates as well as where I think the market is going. Again, I just want to stress that this is not financial advice in any way, guys. This is just me speculating based off of previous cycles for entertainment purposes and educational purposes only. Okay. Don't take my word for it. I can't see the future. Nobody can see the future. And any influencer that tells you that they know what's going to happen is complete full of shit. Okay. I don't care what they say. I don't care who they are or what they've called in the past. If they tell you that they know what's happening, they don't. But I know what's happening. Okay. So that's it for today, guys. I'm just going to end it there. Again, please like and subscribe if you like this content and you want to see more in the future, because I will be providing you guys with updates. And let's see what happens. If you see it in the next couple of weeks, Bitcoin hits a 48,000 and then start seeing a dip. Not saying I'm right, but there's a very good chance I'm right. So keep that in mind and maybe you'll come back to my channel and watch the next one. Until next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.